When you're first starting to learn code, it can often feel like you're either stuck in tutorial hell, you're just following endless guides on YouTube or online course platforms, or you just don't know what you're doing. And these are really common and valid feelings that a lot of people have. And what I want to do in this video is go through a couple of really simple practical ways upon which you can make your first year of code enjoyable, sustainable, and hopefully lead to better outcomes in the future. Now, quick caveat, this video isn't about how to be really good at code from the offset and be amazing your whole life. I think many of us who start coding tend to code for a number of years into the future. And I think what's important is making your coding habits sustainable, productive, and making it so that it's enjoyable over a long period of time. I think if you train yourself to enjoy coding and enjoy the process, it becomes much more sustainable and much more fun. So in this video, I want to go through a number of different, simple, kind of easy ways upon which I think you could make your first year of coding really count. The first two I'm going to tie together. Those are your core concepts and regular practice. Now, suppose you've been coding for a year, you want to go into some of the more advanced libraries, so maybe things like data science or AI. Even the more complex libraries tend to be built on really simple things. So if you know really well how classes, functions, loops, lists, dictionaries work, a lot of the more complex stuff is built on that really simple stuff. And I think having a really good grasp of how the absolute basics work in Python is a really good foundation to have for those really complex libraries later on. Now, I think it goes without saying, kind of master the basics, but over my sort of teaching career, I'd meet a lot of people who just wanted to go straight into AI, but didn't really know as to how things like lists and dictionaries work, or how sets handle duplicates, or how to properly do things like inheritance or composition. I think taking the time in that first year just to build that solid foundation and make it as good as humanly possible is a horrendously valuable skill. And the way that ties in with regular practice, if you're someone who likes to kind of learn late at night or early in the morning, I'm more of a late night kind of person, just giving yourself kind of a regular set time to say, okay, maybe every weeknight, I'm going to spend 20 minutes looking at a different function from the standard library, or I'll take a look at a new module and just spend 20 minutes looking into how it works, having a go, making some notes. If you did that for your first year of coding, by the end of that year, you're going to have a massive amount of knowledge gained and a massive amount of experience. And I think, especially for things like func tools and iter tools, a lot of the more kind of quirky, cool ones that have more complex use cases, later on down the line, if you end up doing more complex stuff in Python, those things you've learned in things like iter tools and func tools, I guarantee you'll end up using. Number 3 is don't force yourself to code, make it rewarding. And I got this idea from Atomic Habits by James Clear, and it kind of argues that one of the things you can do to reinforce a good habit is to kind of implement some kind of reward after you do the thing in the first place. So say, for example, you want to scroll YouTube or Instagram or whatever. One way of making your habit rewarding is to say, okay, I can do X, Y, Z, the fun thing later on, but what I'll do is I'll do it after half an hour of Python. I'll do it after half an hour of reading something or trying to solve some challenge. And I think doing it that way is a lot better. It gives you some incentive to do the code in the first place. I think a lot of people just do this kind of horrific grind of being like, right, I'm going to code for 2 hours and just kind of raw dog it with no music. And then, yeah, it's no surprise that in a month's time, they end up just absolutely hating it. So giving yourself these kind of short, sharp, regular sessions, followed by a reward straight after that session, I think is a really powerful, nice way to code. And for me, I quite like learning in short, sharp chunks, followed by something nice afterwards. If you always link coding with something nice after, it makes like thinking about going to do your next coding session just a bit better as well. So I think that's a nice habit to have right from the very start of your coding career. Number 4 is balance formal courses. Now, full disclaimer, I do publish my own courses online. I've got 2 on Udemy at the moment, and the 3rd one is on the way. They're both in the description if you want to go take a look. Even though I sell these courses, one of the things I really try and establish is don't just do courses. I think it's really important to balance your formal courses with other stuff as well. So suppose, for example, you've got things like reading, you've got kind of projects on the side, you try to do things like LeetCode or Edabit or Project Euler, those kind of coding challenge sites. If you can mix all of those with the formal learning, I think that's much better for your kind of general coding curriculum. It would be like kind of just going to school and like just doing theory in one topic. It's good to do the practicals as well as the theory, and that's kind of how I see mixing formal courses. So yeah, by all means, go and do a course, but maybe if you're spending, say, an hour a day coding, maybe the course could take up, say, the first 20 minutes. You could do maybe 10 doing some reading. That remaining time could then be spent doing your fun projects to maybe build towards your first little coding portfolio. So definitely do the courses. I think they're really good, especially if it's a good course. But mix the formal stuff with the fun stuff at the same time. Number 5 is find something worth fighting for. Sorry if this sounds really cheesy, but just to give a small kind of story on this, when I was first teaching in my first year of university, one of the first things we would do with the students is talk about things they were doing kind of regularly on the computer and discussing if those things could be automated, and then simply saying to someone, okay, you know that thing you do that takes maybe 20 minutes every week? We could automate that, stick it in a Python script, and that could run on a cron job and do it for you once a week. Whether it's like reading some text, sending an email or whatever, having that idea to say, oh, I didn't realize Python could do that, that's kind of cool. It becomes like a passion project. So if you kind of think right from the start of your career, what are things that I sort of do online that I'd like to automate? Or what would be something really cool that I could write right now and just try and build it? Even if that thing is really hard, it's perfectly fine to have something that doesn't seem doable now and just kind of chip away at it as your regular practice. So you can almost do this with the previous point. So if you've got your formal courses, your reading, your kind of challenges, have a little project that really takes your fancy, something that you find really kind of motivates you to code. Have that on the go right from the very start. Having that passion project there that you want to finish, it's going to encourage you, I think, further to kind of go away from what you're doing, come in and actually like, get this thing finished. And then I think having a project-based task right from the start as well is tremendously helpful. It's all well and good just building a function and having a function, and that's fine. But it's much more powerful to have a fully working Python program with, classes, functions, all the stuff, all the documentation strings, your type-ins, all built into one handy package. It might be something that you could then go and publish on PyPy as well. Think about a project that you want to achieve and just start laying the groundwork, start researching what libraries you need, what tricks am I going to need, has something been done in a similar way, could I go and read that? So have it right from the offset, and I think it's a great way to motivate yourself to want to kind of get through that first year, having these projects built and under your belt. The next one on the list is join communities, and I think when I first started coding, this isn't something I really had access to. I started coding quite a long time ago. Of course, we had things like Reddit and all that back then, but they're nowhere near as big as they are now. So you've got quite a few Python subreddits. Loads of them, people can just put their code in and say, what's wrong with this? It doesn't really work. You got things like Stack Overflow, which arguably I don't think are as nice as Reddit. People tend to be a bit friendlier on Reddit. That's just my personal opinion. But, make sure you get onto the subreddits, try and join as many of them as you can, read other people's problems and try and solve them. Maybe if you've got a problem, you can post it as well. But it's good to be connected with other people who are roughly at the same point of learning as you are, especially if you're someone who feels a bit lost in the learning process. Seeing that other people are at the same level as you is tremendously helpful. When I was teaching my first years at uni, we basically had, say, 30 people all at the same level, all together at the same time. And one thing they could do after the lectures was they could kind of sit together, go through the content we had just done, and really try and suss it out together as a group. And I found that just because they were doing it in a group, they almost always just got it, and they would come back into the next session knowing it and done it really well, which is cool. So having other people there with you at the same level, I think, is tremendously helpful. Now, the last one on the list, I'll try and keep it fairly brief, but hear me out on this one. I think it might be a bit abstract, but we'll see, is embrace and recognize the difficulty of what you're doing, especially in that first year. A lot of people will code for maybe a couple of months, they'll think it's really, really hard, and then maybe they'll quit or they'll kind of get discouraged and move on to something else. I think coding for your first year is quite difficult, and if you can kind of recognize that and understand that, yes, at the moment it's going to be quite tricky and quite difficult, especially while I'm kind of getting the groundwork covered, but as I get better and better and more experienced, it is going to get easier and easier. This is something I definitely experienced in my first sort of 6 months, I'd say. I was seeing all these people who were really good. They could do all this stuff with machine learning. I didn't really know how to do that yet. But as I spent time covering the basics and doing all the groundwork, that stuff I can do quite easily now, and that's just because I was kind of patient. I kind of worked towards a goal kind of slowly, steadily, made it sustainable, and now it's something that I do for a job full time, which is really cool. I think nowadays, especially with like the bombardment of social media, stuff like that, we're always being shown people who are really good at programming and then seeing how kind of cool their life is. We don't really know much about the graft behind the scenes to that person, and I think it's really easy to compare yourself with those people as well. So I'd say don't get discouraged. Everyone is kind of in the same boat, or has been in your boat at some point. Coding generally just can be quite hard. And I think recognizing that, trying not to get frustrated, and just being patient and understanding that me learning to code is a linear process. I just have to keep moving up, slowly, surely, chipping away, and it'll get easier and easier down the line. So to round this video off, I want to ask you guys, do you have any tips of things you've done in your first year of code which really helped you learn, or things which you wish you could have done in your first year if you could have gone back? Cheers for watching, guys, and see you all in the next video.